I'm going to spotlight me for everybody right now because it's 10 o'clock and this is Woodturners Coffee Hour number 119, starring all of you all today. The only announcement I have is please tune into the screen behind me here. We're going to do a live show at the Mid-Atlantic. We're going to try and do it without demos because they're afraid we'll depress attendance, live attendance, if we do demos. So we're going to bring you everything else to do with the Mid-Atlantic. And if we have time later today, I'll show you a few photographs of the setup we're going to use, which I've been working on for several months now. It's quite elaborate and it's getting simpler at the same time. So anyway, that's my announcement for today. I also want to note that we had a wonderful demo on Tuesday night between us and Susquehanna with Dave Landers, who's on screen. And to members of the Lancaster Club, I really owe an apology. In the last two meetings, I've done a major screw up with the audio from the room. And I know why that is now. Basically, there's too much junk in the system because we're patching it together. And I'm afraid we're going to have to spend a little more money on some better gear. So I'll be proposing that to the club, to the Lancaster Club in the near future. And along with that, for those of you who are members of the Lancaster Club, I'm reaching the end of my ability to carry this as a sole player. I need a stand-in. I need somebody who can take over the Lancaster Club meetings and learn to run the system and become good at it. So I'm beginning the call for volunteers. And if anybody who belongs to Lancaster Club and can attend in New Holland would like to become a Zoom expert, here's your chance. So those are my announcements for the day. If that lead to any questions, go ahead and ask them. And otherwise, let's do raise hand and see what we're going to do for shows and tells today. Questions, comments? I'm going to take the spotlight off me.
Or somebody's asking for some assistance with our Zoom activity at Mid-Atlantic. So you want to...
That was Starlipper on his own. We got enough of a team for Mid-Atlantic. What we're asking for is people to attend. We need attendance. We don't have enough. Well, here's what's going to happen. If we don't get enough attendance to make a good Zoom show, we'll make a documentary and we'll have a movie at the end. So either way, it'll be fun. But yeah, we'd like to do this Zoom thing. We got a lot of stuff planned, but we need an audience for it. So
I was wondering what that was all about. I thought, well, maybe I've been replaced on the team, but no, I'm just kidding.
Without you and the team, I'm dead.
No, you're not.
For next week, however, we're going to get a chance to play with all that too. Next Thursday, of course, is the day we're moving the lathes into the Marriott, and I'm going to be accompanying the truck so I can make a video of that. And that's going to be happening right at coffee hour. So I'll come on to coffee hour and I'll get the thing started on my home computer. But the rest of you are going to have to carry the ball. I'm going to ask Jim and Bert and Ernie and Bruce to all be co-hosts or something like that, so that just hey, have fun.
Hey guys, beware. This is his pitch to figure out the next guy to replace him. So beware.
This sounds like a dress rehearsal to me.
You're right, Ernie.
It has to happen, and that's one of the things that is really an issue for our club and for a lot of other clubs. Everybody's happy to let one guy carry the ball and be the tech head. And, okay, let him do it. It's all fine. But the guy fries. You reach a point where you can't do it anymore, and the club has to move on and have somebody else who can step in. And it's a progression, and it's very easy to not attend to that but it's really important that we do it. So, geez, we're all ancient geezers. We're going to shuffle off at some point, and you don't want to leave a mess behind. You want to leave somebody to be able to carry the ball.
Which leads me, John, I have a question that sometime we want to take up here. We're old geezers. How do you know when it's time to quit turning, and why?
I know I haven't turned in almost a year, except for this weekend. And the reason is I had a bunch of health issues that I couldn't stand at the lathe for more than 20 minutes. I can now, so I'm back to turning. But that's one reason.
I have a
is that once you lose the fun of it.
Yep.
There you go.
You're right, Don. I think you're right.
Probably the most important time for quitting turning is when you can hear that drill screwing the lid down. That's when I look at stopping.
If you hear it, you shouldn't be listening.
Yeah, that's right.
I think it applies the same way someone told me about driving. You know when it's time.
You'll know when it's
Wait.
time. Yeah.
I
did not want to not turn all last winter. I had no choice about it, and I'm really delighted to be back in the shop now. In fact, I have a friend and his partner coming over on Saturday. He's a school teacher. He wants to make 16 wooden donuts about this big that his kids can use to run string around. So we're gonna have a lot of fun making those. I've got some nice cypress to make it out of. Well, that's one of the things I enjoy the most, actually, is having someone who wants to make something or learn to turn come into the shop and play for a day. I had a fellow coming in every Saturday for a while. That got to be more than I wanted, but once in a while, it's lots of fun.
But John, I also asked the question. The other aspect, which I didn't hear any of you guys say, is I have a partner in life, my wife, who's getting concerned about me being in the shop by myself. I had a recent smack of the chisel against a hand, and she got alarmed, and so she's starting to put a little pressure on me for maybe good reason, but I'm not anywhere near. I just need to be smarter and not be so, like we say in Pennsylvania, that's shushlik, not so shushlik.
I think maybe one of these smartphones will alert the ambulance with bleeding too. You know.
Well, Jim, if she's serious, she'll let you buy her a lathe.
No, she's got a pottery wheel already. She doesn't need a lathe. So.
There's nowhere to put another lathe in his shop.
Thanks, John.
Jim, you need to tell your wife that you started a little bit later, so you have to make all the beginner's mistakes when you're older. So all you did was a beginner's mistake. We all made those when we were like 50 instead of 75. So
yeah, that's the problem. I'm working every day to catch up with all you old geezers who've been turning for decades. I'm just catching up. So
yeah,
you'd always do like Landers. Look at him back there. He's in his shop sanding away on something, pretending to pay attention.
But tell you, Landers, that was an awesome presentation the other night. I went
finishing up the piece before I send it off to you guys. So
cool.
Well, it'll end up at Susquehanna, but hopefully they'll let you in on passing it around or something. So
I think if they're anything of the spirit of the rest of us, they'll put it in the auction at the Mid-Atlantic.
Or raffle it off.
Yeah.
But then I'd have to be a member of Susquehanna again. I'm not a member right now. Sorry about that, guys.
Before we go on further here, I'd invite you all to take a look at gallery view so you can see all the smiling faces on the screen. We're showing 44 here today. And I think it's important in these Zoom calls to recognize the other people who've come in. I mean, there are 44 of us in various parts of the world today, all tuned in on wood turning, which is really quite amazing. And with that, Ernie, you want to take the floor and show your little video? You're muted, buddy.
Yes, definitely. I'm going to do a screen share now and show you a 1 and 34-second video I did for my latest wood turning article. Here we go, screen share. There we are.
We don't have it yet. There it is.
There, you should have it.
Now we got it.
All right, here goes. Hi, I'm Ernie Conover. Welcome to my shop. In this month's Woodworkers Journal article, I showed how to make a pair of classically inspired candlesticks. These forms that these candlesticks exhibit come from Greek and Roman architecture. This form has enjoyed a revival in furniture about every 50 years since the 1700s, often called neoclassical in modern times. It is with mixed emotions that I say that this will be my last column on turning in Woodworkers Journal. I have written this column for a little better than 11 years, and it is time for somebody else to pick up the gouge and lead the way. Since the readership of a magazine rolls over about every 3 to 5 years. Many of the topics I have covered have been covered twice, actually, always in a little bit different way, a little bit different twist. So it is time to blow the light out on this column. Anybody know when the next swan boat is coming?
Very cool.
Very cool. Comments for Ernie? Ernie,
Yes.
go ahead.
Well, it was sort of time to end that column. I was a little bit sick of writing it, and we decided that actually give it a rest for a while. I don't think they're going to bring another editor in for a while on that one. I'd like to write another column in the future, but on hand tools, and I'm shopping that around at the moment.
Maybe
Ernie, will you be able to keep writing after you throw the gouge away?
Sure. There's no, as Rudy Selnick, one of my mentors, said, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Good, Ernie, good.
Any comments for Ernie? I mean, I want to congratulate you, Ernie, in holding a column down for 11 years. That's a bi-monthly or a monthly, that magazine?
It's bi-monthly. It's every other month, so 6 a year. But I've written a lot of other columns for them, all kinds of things, from covering the Rhode Island Furniture Conference at Yale several years ago. You name it, I've done it. So it's been a good gig. And I've worked for a lot of magazines over the years, but never for 11 years. That has just got to be longevity that, I don't know, I pinch myself over that one.
Well, what we used to say at Fine Woodworking was, you can slice the bologna diagonally, you can slice it long ways, you can slice it straight across. It's the same bologna, but you can keep presenting it in different ways from different angles.
That's a great analogy. And yeah, I've done salad forks essentially 3 times in that column in 11 years. So
talking about that kind of stuff, I had a boss that used to say, facts over bullshit, I'll bullshit you every time.
Are you saying his articles are just bullshit?
I can't say I'm a big reader, Ernie, but I really think that probably the coffee hour contribution you've made is equivalent to at least 11 years worth of columns. So thank you for your presence here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it.
We used to say that what Fine Woodworking ought to do after Fine Home Building was Fine Thank You, the magazine of modern manners. But
modern manners would be you just shoot the guy right on the side.
Any other comments for Ernie?
So we're on a theme now of what to do when it's all over. Is that what we're on a theme for here? So,
who knew?
I'm not going to stop turning or teaching or any of that. It's just I'm ending the column. I have nothing more to say, and it was getting to be tedious to come up with ideas,
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to just again, I did this once before several months ago. Give my thanks. I bumped into Ernie at the Toronto Woodworking Show about 22, maybe even 23 years ago on a Friday afternoon. I buggered off work because it was only 25 minutes away. And he had just put out his new book on bowling, and Lee Valley had him in their booth. And that was the beginning of what I call my boarding game phase of wood turning, which started in high school in the 50s, late 50s. And I picked up in basically 1998 or 99, somewhere in there. And you're one of the guys you're one of my go-to guys. Let me say that.
Well, thank you. I used to really enjoy that Toronto show because I'm actually 1/4 Canadian. My grandfather was from New Brunswick.
Wow.
So went there a lot as a kid in the summer. And that was out near the airport, as I remember.
Yeah,
and,
the old de Havilland factory where they built the aircraft during the war.
Yeah, that's right. That building had a lot of history.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving the show one time, and a snowstorm hit, and somehow the provincial government had run out of money for roads, so they just didn't plow them. And we essentially plowed the highway all the way home or to the border anyway.
Ernie, if I'm not mistaken, I remember that snowstorm having come from Toronto. It occurred in early April, and the union agreement for clearing snow ended at the beginning of April, and so it was the only snowstorm I've ever been in Toronto where they didn't have the snow plows going.
That's about right, time-wise, and it was just it was horrendous getting to the border because you have to go down across the Niagara frontier. We usually go one bridge east of the Niagara crossing.
Well, since I'm almost 65 now, that would have been just about 50 years ago, which tells you how long you've been running around the world as far as wood turning is concerned.
Yeah, I am becoming a doyen fast, which is the oldest living representative.
Ernie, I want you to know that you get a lot of credit for me being on Woodturners. I look up through my pile of books and I see your name a lot. And then when you were on this, I go, oh my gosh, this is a serious group of guys. Ernie Conover's on this. And so John gets credit for getting you on or something, but thank you. You helped make this worth the trip.
Well, John and I go back to the beginning of fine woodworking time. He originally was a stringer for the Plain Dealer here in Cleveland. And he and I spent a couple hours at RIT where he had just graduated and was moving on to become the editor of Fine Woodworking. And we had a great morning. And in some ways, Fine Woodworking was such a phenomenal success. And John was such a great editor that I don't think there was a time when we ever spent 20 minutes in conversation until I wrote a book for Fox Chapel where he was high in the hierarchy of Fox Chapel.
I banged around all the companies in the industry at one time or another.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you start as a writer or as a wood turner that became a writer?
I started as a woodworker that became a writer. And I originally was trained as a machinist. So I still speak pretty fluent engine lathe and Bridgeport. But I liked writing. I started writing, and I've always said that I'm really a furniture builder with a wood turning problem.
Hey, by the way, you are there's an old Indian chief saying that says, it's time for me to stop talking. I've said more than I know. So I kind of think that's a good send off.
Yeah, I think it's very much time to end this discussion. It's and let somebody else have the floor here.
Okay. Oh, no, I meant your writing. So.
Well, we'll end that discussion in just a second, unless there's anybody else with anything to say to Ernie or about Ernie. Go for it. Okay, Michael Brazeau.
Yeah.
Spotlight on you.
Well, tonight we have our member vote on our hybrid stuff, so pretty confident that that's going to go through. Scott Tipping's done a great job in leading our team. But anyway, when we were talking about when it's time to quit turning, I've been going through a phase, as many of you know, I had a complete cardiac arrest almost 2 years ago, and some of the heart medications were really slowing me down. And in May, I went off my blood pressure drug. I never had a history of high blood pressure. And the cardiologist knows it, and they haven't really signed off on it, but it's working. I've got more energy back, and I'm trying to push myself to get back to the lathe. So I participated in our hands-on last Thursday night and got the Christmas ornament stuff started. And our President's Challenge tonight is for a miniature. So I know if I can. Here's a little natural edge bowl from some hazel. We had a couple of hazel bushes that died from lack of light. We live in a white pine grove and nothing can grow. Anyway, I'd also like to do a share screen. I upgraded my 23-year-old 1-horsepower dust collector on the weekend to a cartridge filter system. And it's a hobbyist level dust collector. It's not a shop level. I run 3 tools on it. And I took a few pictures while I was doing it, and I posted it on our Canadian woodworking site, because it's really, if you got an old bag dust collector, it's really worth the investment. If I could do a share screen.
Go for it. It's legal.
So this is what I had. I had bought from Lee Valley a larger bag. I don't know, 15 years ago. It was a dust collector, dust consultant that used to make them and sell them through Lee Valley. And that helped, but now it's packed. This area over here is what's called a fill fine collector. And I've got a couple of shots that will show the guts of that. This I did about 15 years ago. And I have this collected. I use it for fine dust over at the lathe. I go to my table saw and I go to my bandsaw. And that's all. I don't sweep up the floor, stuff like that. I don't have the capacity. But anyway, after 10 years, I had 4 inches of fine dust in the dust collector in the bottom bag of the collector. And this bin had about 30 inches of sawdust. There was no sawdust in the bag, just sanding dust. So there's the old collector cleaned up, ready to go. So this is there's the bottom of one of these pleated cartridge filters, if anyone hasn't ever seen it. So this is kind of like a medium density rubber base, and the device for cleaning you can wind that and knock the dust off the pleats. In my case, my collector inlet was 3/4 of an inch smaller in diameter than this measurement here. So I used some carpet pad that I had saved. You know how we all have that stuff we save, and stuffed it under the edge. This is the fill fine concept. So the inlet comes in and then sweeps around the periphery of the collector at the bottom, and you have this plate which has a portion cut out, so the dust swirls around and falls down. I don't know. It has to be my magic. I don't know. This is just some all-thread rod, and here I have a 6-inch outlet, a reducer fitting that I added to it. I've kept. This thing has evolved over. This was a long time ago that I did it, but it's worked out really quite well. So there's another shot. So this is the outlet. This is the inlet and PVC pipe. I learned very early in my dust collecting at our old farmhouse. I plugged the complete system up, trying to suck in shavings from the lathe. So I had another shot. I've forgotten to add it in here, but it makes a very nice little compact system. You can just rotate this, and it will clean off the.
So this is the same system as the jet that everybody has with the
barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Grizzly. This happens to be the Busy Bee. Trademaster was a brand that disappeared about 15 years ago. Home Hardware picked it up for a while, but Grizzly would sell this. The cost was $202 Canadian tax in. It was $30 off, I think. That's what caught my eye, and I finally decided to do it. So we're talking about the end of our turning career. I'm trying not to buy stuff, but when it comes to protecting our lungs, I think it's a worthwhile investment. And I used it yesterday when I was turning that little bowl, and it was awesome. It was really good.
So this is your total setup here now.
Yep, that's it.
And these hoses go to 3 different machines?
That's right. And the gates, I can just reach over with a stick and open or pull. I've got wire on this one for my table saw. This picture is a little bit old. It isn't exactly the same setup, but I have one. I guess this one here is the one that goes to my bandsaw. And so just a couple of seconds, I can switch from one tool to the other. And I have a remote start switch, which I took from a house built-in vacuum system that had died. And I'm pretty handy with electricity, so I just made a switch that I can turn the thing off and on. I had a remote and it died a long time ago.
So the chips land in the cardboard barrel there? Is that what happens?
Yes.
dust goes through into the rest of it.
That's right. So in here, after 10 years, I had 4 inches of dust.
Well, do you think that that's all the dust there was, or did a lot of it escape into the air?
Well, some might have been going through the bag. With the cloth bag, the only way you clean them is to bang them. And when you do that, a lot of dust goes in the air.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's the air outlet down through that bag. So you couldn't put a plastic bag down there.
This is the outlet here.
Okay. So that cloth bag down below, that could be a plastic bag.
Yeah, there's a plastic bag inside that.
Okay. I always wonder whether these systems actually collect all the fine dust. I think they collect a lot of stuff besides the fine dust, and I think the fine dust goes right through, is what it seems like to me.
Well, there's a guy in Saskatchewan. You could buy a little laser monitor they're not that expensive now, that you can shine in your shop and actually measure the particulate. It's the sub-micron that goes through. This is rated at 1 micron. And then once you get a little bit of dust on the inside, it reduces that number a little bit. That's where the cloth bag was only good once it had a coating on the inside, and then you lose volume.
What do anybody else think?
This is a hobbyist level. You know, I looked at a 3-horsepower Oneida. A friend had one, and there was no way I could have that in my shop. It was too noisy.
My son has one that he has in an alcove off his shop with a door on it, so you don't hear it. It works really well. But I balk at $3,000. On the other hand, I've had lung surgery, and I would not want that again.
Yeah. I met the founder of Oneida flying back from the St. Paul meeting years ago. We sat in the airport together for an hour. Fascinating man.
So you decided not to have an Oneida system because you think it's noisier than this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you really have to. I looked at it. That was when I added the large bag, and this got by. I mean, I used to turn maybe, 6-8 hours a week kind of thing. I'm not in a production shop. If I was in production, I'd have an Oneida.
Anybody else on this?
Yeah, I made one of those. This is Mike piece. I made one of those Phil Themes systems as well. I think we've all seen those plastic tops that you buy from the store that's got a baffle in and a baffle out, but this is so far superior in the design. And that baffle creates this amazing whirlpool. So the chips, when they run out of velocity, they drop down into the slot, and then the fines are going through a whirlpool and sucked up the middle. It really is an amazing system.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
John, sorry, go ahead.
What you're doing here is changing a single stage blower into a 2-stage or cyclone blower, because that cyclone causes all the chips to fall out. Jet actually embraced a system developed by a guy in Australia in which you can put a baffle plate in a single stage blower and make it really have the equivalent of a 2-stage. I was lucky enough to test it for quite a while at my shop for Jet, and it works quite well too. But we've now got a plethora of these kinds of systems that you can there's one that'll go on top of a vacuum and change how much you have to really empty the vacuum. And it's really a big improvement in dust.
I have one of those, and I just use it for the final cleanup. I don't suck stuff up. I sweep it up and then do the final cleanup. I made the cart, and I'm just using the small rigid shop vac and a couple of pool chemical pails. It has so much suction, you have to put 2 plastic pails together because it'll collapse one. It's fantastic. Your filter doesn't plug up on the vacuum.
So if I'm hearing you guys right, you're saying these 2-stage systems, even one rigged up like Mike's, are that much better than the filter on top of the bag?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
But a lot of the systems you buy now, turnkey, and Jet makes one, Powermatic makes one, they really essentially are that. And you have usually a little bag to the left, a plastic bag that you get the fine dust in, and all the chips go in a barrel.
The canister is worth every buck you spend. I adapted my Grizzly 1029 that way, and boy, that's a big difference in performance. For one thing, for some reason, it lets the air travel better. The bag is more restrictive, but it catches more quote unquote microns of dust. I loved it. As soon as I switched it, I got my power back in my system, and yeah, they can be adapted. I had to make a little bit of adaptation for the diameter.
The other thing, John, you made a reference to how much it captures. No matter what the system is, it won't be perfect, because perfect means zero airflow. So you're getting down to 1 micron, half micron. I'm not sure what is healthing, but even then, you know, when you say your I-95 masks or something like that for the COVID, they were like 1 micron masks for protection. So what you're effectively saying is it's like having a COVID mask on your shop vac, which is really pretty remarkable for size cleaning.
One of the things that people have to make sure they consider as well is that your filter plugs up as it gets plugged up. It reduces the airflow, and an air filtration system only works as per design when it has the design airflow. I bought a 2 horsepower to replace my 1 horsepower, and I love it. And the main reason is that, and I also bought a velocity meter. So now I can stick my velocity meter in the 6-inch inlet by the lathe, and I can tell when my filter is starting to plug up. It's getting more efficient, giving the air cleaner, but it's also cutting down on the amount of airflow. So I use the amount of airflow to try and keep the filter in its design. And I found that I know now when to go and swing the cleaner on the filter, because it's a HEPA filter on this one, and it plugs up really quickly. So now with a velocity meter, as soon as I see the velocity on my 6-inch inlet by the lathe start to diminish, I know the filter's working because the airflow is going down, but I can go and give it a couple of sweeps and it brings it back. Never brings it back to new, but it brings it back to where I'm learning how often I need to clean the filter so that I maintain the velocity. This thing changes the air in my shop 3 times or 3 minutes. Every 3 minutes, my complete shop has been put through that filter. And it is amazing the difference in the shop. From going from a 1 horsepower to a 2 horsepower it made all the difference in the world.
So like for me, it's going to be new phone, new dust system, new phone, new dust system.
This begs the question, do you guys then also wear masks when you're around the shop, all the dust masks?
I don't anymore. I've got an AS400 that I used to wear all the time because there was so much dust floating in the air. But since I put this new air system in, even when the sun shines through, there's hardly any dust in the air. So that's, yeah, I very seldom, unless I'm doing some exotic wood that have a reaction to or something, then I'd wear a mask.
When I was doing a lot of bowls, I had a Triton mask or a helmet and with the filter system, and I would wear that. And I tend not to now, but I have my nozzle right up to my work. It's like 3 inches away.
Again, I'd comment that even if your nozzle's really up close, I didn't spend a lot of time in air filtration, but a lot of time in fluid filtration. And even if your nozzle's really up close, you can still get dust that's not captured by that nozzle. So when you're in the direct vicinity of it, you're probably the more dust that you have just from directly beside your lathe, just from is going to be worse than anything you have in your shop.
All you have to do is look at your glasses when you finish whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
So with those systems that are the canister with the handle, is it idiotic to run the handle while the machine's running? Or do you run the handle around when the machine is stopped?
Stop.
I normally start in the morning. I go and if I go in the morning or when I go out there, I run the handle before I start. And then if I happen to notice the velocity change, I just go and give it a couple of rubs while it's running. It doesn't seem to make much difference.
It seems to me that if you did it while it's running, the dust you knock off is just going to get jammed back in a new place.
That might be
possible. But
it should be done while the system is off and just before you empty it.
Let it fall down.
Yep. And another gizmo that's made by a company in Toronto that makes electric gates that when you touch the button on your machine, it will open the gate. It will close the gate when you turn the machine off, and then open one gate to keep one gate on your system open at all times, so you aren't pulling too high a vacuum in there, which isn't good for it. And they make a little gizmo for, it's like less than $100. I'm going to say like $85, but you just put this little module on the top of your dust bucket, really, and then you put another thing on the wall, and when it gets within 3 inches of the top, it starts a flashing light on the wall and makes a tone. And if you've ever backed a dust collection of any size up and filled a pipe, it's not a pretty sight, and it's a couple hours work to fix it. So this is a wonderful item that tells you when to empty the darn thing.
Well, none of us have ever done that, Ernie. We never packed our pipes.
I have a personal issue with all those things. Part of what I go to the shop for is to be active and physical. So part of that is go over to the dust machine and open the gate you want and close the gate you don't want and pay attention to it. So I don't want no buttons. I want to go.
The other thing that, if you're really serious, get that dust collecting out of your shop. Get all that mechanism out. I saw a biggest difference when I moved from my basement shop up at our homestead down here to our retirement place. I moved it out. I don't like the sound of it, for one thing, but I moved it out and I said, whoa, because the area I moved in is my lumber storage, where I start seeing dust on the lumber and stuff, and I go, yeah. Oh, that was going in my shop before. So now it's out, and I still got dust all over the place. But.
For me, I'd have to move it into my wife's potting shed. I don't think that's going to work real well.
Well, the other problem is you're sucking the air conditioning or the heat out of the room. And yes, you put the filters back inside the room, which can be done, but it's more expensive work.
I actually thought it would make more sense to make a box, a coffin, a kind of a closet with sound insulation in it and good ventilation for air in to house all the gear. Does anybody do that?
I've seen that done. I have a friend that has done that with an Oneida, basically. Yeah, and actually, Beach Slack in Niagara Falls did that. He just made an isolated at the rear end of his shop, and like a closet.
That's what I would do, I think.
And then put several furnace filters back into where it's coming back into the shop. So,
yeah, you do big vents in the sides of your box. Yeah. You put furnace filters behind them, so it catches the air, but it lets the air through, and hopefully the sound stays behind.
Yeah.
John, the other solution is to have it in an old garage. It has its own leaky air intake. You know what I mean? Yeah, if you build one of these modern tight buildings, you're going to have do airflow. Just use an old garage, you know. I know.
So. Anybody else on this?
I recognize that container that was being used for that because my dad worked for York Corrugating Company, which is an HVAC supply house. We had we had probably 20 or 25 of those barrels. We used them for storage.
Let me see. Okay, enough on dust. Anybody else? Okay, good discussion. Don, what do you got today?
Well, I just got a couple of things I made in the last 24 hours. I go down to car boot sales and I buy glass candle holders, and they're two different shapes, two different sizes, but just to show you, I'll come back a bit. There we are. That's the first one, and it's shaped as per the glass.
Put it in. Yeah. Cool.
And then, as I say, there's only a couple, and that's another one. It's much bigger. The first one was in oak. This one's in beech. Again, the shape and the shape.
Nice.
Let me guess, Don, you bought it from Amazon?
The what?
You bought the inserts from Amazon?
No, car boot sale.
Jim, this is a British gentleman speaking. A boot, you know, a trunk, the car trunk.
Sale is a junk sale. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
50 pence each. And then, of course, you can put in just your normal little candles, or you can, of course, put your long stem candles in them.
Nice work.
But just to show you a couple of things that I made in the last 24 hours.
Nice work, Don.
Hopefully, when I get the new computer, I shall work up a few photographs of other stuff I make outside of bowls so that you can see what I do over here. But I've got to get the new computer and get it organized first. So hopefully in a couple of weeks' time.
Don, you solved the problem for me. You scared me when you said you weren't allowed to put candles in wooden holders in England. And I said, oh my gosh, I made too many wooden holders for it. And I said, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So now I got an idea. I have to go out and try it.
Yeah. As long as we can put an insert in, I have a very large candle stick on my staircase. It's approximately 2.5 feet tall, and it has a 4-inch block candle in it. And what I did there was I went down to my local garden centre and bought a China flower pot cup.
Yep.
Built that on top of it and then put the candle in that.
Okay.
Jim, if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot and pick up the copper ends that you use for the pipes for, you know, the capping off pipes, they work really well too for that.
Yeah, as long as you've got something that stops it from touching the wood if it was to burn down and you weren't in the house.
When I made my candle holders, I also turned soapstone. I picked up soapstone when I was in Newfoundland, picked it right out of the quarry, took the soapstone home. And now when I use, if I make a candle holder, I put a soapstone accent on the top, which holds the candle. Yeah. And they look really good, and it's turned. It's not metal. I got this thing about wood and metal. I'd rather stay with natural products, but soapstone's messier than hell to turn, but it turns beautifully. And it polishes up amazing, and it looks good. It'll complement any kind of wood. The soapstone from Newfoundland was light green with some white flecks in it. It's amazing product.
What chisel do you use?
Just high-speed steel. Just the same tools I'd use, mostly scrapers, but the same as wood. It's just really, really fine powder. You definitely got to wear a dust mask when you're doing soapstone.
You don't want to breathe that stuff.
No.
I've got a question for you. I can well see that having the glass is a great insulator and it's much safer. But in that I saw that you were using what I think they're called tea candles with the metal around the wax portion. Is that sufficient to keep us at least reasonably safe from having the wood catch on fire?
Pretty good. Good start.
They're not too bad on wood. I still would not really put them into wood. I would always use another system in there to give it a double insulation because it is a very thin tin. It's only about 1.5 mil thick. And if it was to get overheated, it could. But no, I have made them without it and they have worked okay. It's just that health and safety over here has gone crazy.
Well, it's a good idea. I was just wondering how safe you thought they were.
Oh, they are safe. It's just you've got to watch the health and safety people in different parts of the country.
Having the additional margin is a good thing, yeah.
How sleepy are you going to get after the second bottle of wine after dinner with the candle burning?
Well, then it's gone out.
2 bottles later, the candle's gone out, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Over to you, Toby. What do you got today? You're muted. You're still muted. Okay.
There, now can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay.
We got a couple more guys after you, so go for it.
Yep. Share screen here.
Yep.
Hopefully this is it. All right. Maple burl with the bark edge, dyed blue. 10 inches by 2 inches. That's
Tell me,
bottom of
I'm
it.
curious how you get that blue. I use blue dye on light colored maple or whatever, and I get a green. Are you using a really thin blue, or how does that?
Well, probably your maple is a little bit yellowish, and it's mixing with the blue and turning it green.
You can see that.
That's the point, but most wood is similar to that, lighter wood.
Yeah.
You seem like you get a really beautiful blue color. I don't know how you're doing it.
It may be the trans tint dye that I'm using. I don't know. What kind do you use?
I'm using a powder.
Okay. Well, it's a possibility. It's the dye. I usually put 2 coats on. So maybe that's a factor.
Doing too.
A lot of folks like to put a thin layer of black on the bottom and then kind of cut that back, which may also help you avoid the yellow.
I'll try it.
Side view.
Like that. I like that. I like the way these look.
Pretty piece.
This is elm. A little bit of burl figure in there also.
It's not dyed, right?
No, this is natural color. There's some spalting in there, white rot and whatnot. A little bit of a branch sticking out up here. Thought that was interesting. There it is. Some bug holes. This is 7.5 by 5. It's the inside of it. This is, well, can you guess what kind of wood this is? Without looking at the name.
Sycamore.
This is walnut.
What?
This is walnut. Most of this blue area is sapwood, and then the heartwood there was a branch coming out.
You think that's not going to crack on you at some point?
No.
Okay.
There are a few cracks radiating out here, but I think that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
Oops, wrong way. This is cherry burl. Well, this was a crotch figure here. There's some burl figure also, but mainly I was showing off the crotch figure here.
That's a pretty piece. Is that cherry, maple? What is that?
This is cherry. It had, when it dried, it had a few cracks going down through here, and I just filled those with sanding dust and some CA.
What's your top finish? Is it rattle can lacquer?
Well, it's acrylic spray paint, clear spray paint, but it's the same. It looks the same.
Is it rattle can or do you have a spray gun?
No, it's rattle can. This is 4 inches by 7.5 inches. And this is a huge cherry burl that someone commissioned from me. It's 14.5 by 6. I did core this out and got smaller ones from it. It's a side view.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh, and this is that. Jim wanted to see the profile of that one I showed last week.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
By the way, I'd love to see you have a little bit of a fill light in the left so you don't have as deep a shadow so I can see it better.
I do have a bounce card, but I don't always use it. That does lighten it up a little bit.
You weren't using it, I could tell.
No.
Questions and comments for Toby before I move on? Okay, I'm going to move on to me. I'm going to show you what we're going to do for the Mid-Atlantic in a quick little slideshow, if you don't mind. A lot of you guys are club influencers, and I'm really trolling hard for people to register. You go to mawts.com. Anyway, I'm going to share this. This is where it started for me. I needed to find a cart and to move the gear around on, and this was $400, which didn't make any sense. So I found this. This is a transport chair for invalids. I got it for $50 from the family of someone who'd recently died. And then I discovered the arms were very nearly level, and I started to create a platform on it. and I ended up with this setup. There's a platform, there's a storage box where the battery box goes, and there's a drawer underneath. And then when it's fully loaded, it comes at you looking like this. So there's the cart loaded with a monitor, room-facing monitor, a video camera. This is a light over here, and that's an iPhone that's looking at the operator, and there's a speakerphone and a microphone over there. So this allows somebody to go anywhere with a battery-powered cart, and this is useful for clubs. And all you got to do is plug in and run your video cables, and I'll show you some of the detail of the cart. If you lift the skirts on the cart over here on the, let me see, where do I want to show you? This one. This side. This is the operator's side. The back of these transport chair folds down. So I have a panel in there that has the Netgear router. It has a power strip. This is the cord that plugs in. And it has a bunch of connections and plug-ins and another battery. And this over here is a cable snub, so none of the wires can get pulled out. There's another cable snub over here on the side of the, so this is the main electrical panel, and then this back down here flips up and it becomes mostly hidden. And then on the other side over here, this is the battery box. You can see in there, and down below there's a little compartment where all the HDMI cords wind up. So we can take in HDMI from 2 different feeds, and we can put out HDMI to 2 feeds, to big TVs or whatever we have to. So all those cords are, all the cables for this cart are entirely contained on the cart. This is a cable snub here for HDMI cables. You see 3 cables snubbed here. Wing nuts hold it down. So that cable can be hauled on really hard. It's not going to yank out of the ATEM, and it's not going to pull the cart over. So what this amounts to is a self-contained unit that can be, let's see if I can get back here. It's a self-contained unit that can be used for, here's the back with the backup. This is the operator's side. A club can use a setup like this as well. This would work very well in a club setup. You'd have your main camera right here on the cart, set up a second on a tripod or an iPod, and that's the only cable you got running. Park this near your big monitor and plug that directly in, and you got 1 wire or 2 wires on the floor. Easy to make it so it's safe, as opposed to the current setups I see in clubs that set up every month for a meeting with just enormous number of cables and a lot of difficult setup. Now, this was not easy to set up. There's a lot of work to get all this together and get all the cable snubs made. But in the end, what I've got here is a completely portable, fully self-contained, battery-powered Zoom unit. It'll run about 3 hours, 2.5 hours, entirely on battery. Plug it in, and it'll run, and battery charges, and it continues to run. So if I was doing our club has a semi-permanent setup. If I was doing a setup like a lot of clubs have, where you have to go in and set up every time, I would absolutely do it something like this. Now I have a shot in here that's down on the there. There's the down view on the operator's desk. There's the ATEM and the cable snubs. Here's the microphones, Ceramonics mics parked in between the 2 screens. These are speakers and more microphones, a USB bus, mouse, which isn't needed because I got a trackpad on the computer, operator camera, which can show signage or whatever you need to have show, or it can look at the operator, as can the laptop lid. So I think I got something here that any club could use to simplify their setup and make it very quick to set up, quick to put away, and get a whole lot less cables on the floor. Questions and comments?
Very nice, John. MacGyver would be proud.
Yeah, well, let me see if I can figure out how to end the share here. Where's the button for
How big a lead acid battery do you have in there, John?
It's an Anchor battery box. It costs $500. No, $250. And it's about the size of a lunchbox. And it's made. It's one of those things you use for take with your RV. Battery backup. I don't quite know what its ratings are, but it'll run the key to the thing was finding a monitor that ran correctly on USB-C power, which the monitor I have on that does. So the whole cart's self-contained and all USB powered. But that was the trick. Was the key? That was the key to it.
And then you have a trickle charger on it to keep it up, or is it a full-blown charger?
You plug it into the wall and it charges. It just charges as well as outputting at the same time. It can simultaneously charge and feed power through.
Oh, it's all part of the box you bought then.
Yep. Anchor is the brand. There's a whole lot of them out there now. Jackaroo is another blend. There's a whole bunch of them, and they all look like a lunchbox, and they come in different sizes. Very effective for running laptops and USB-C gear. There's a lot to get to work together in a setup like that, and a lot to simplify. I've probably thrown away a half a dozen cameras, but the system does work.
Could you not have used a small inverter to power the monitor if you had to? I know I had one I used on a telescope years ago.
Yes, you can. And you can also run, the battery box has two 110 outlets, so you can run a 110 thing off it, but it's going to drain the power awfully fast, that's all.
Yeah.
On the current draw of the monitor. On the other hand, an LED monitor does not draw much current. So
all in, what do you think you got in that?
You mean counting the laptop? This was my year to buy a new laptop. My old laptop was 10 years old, so that was the biggest expense. After that, probably $1,500 between monitor, battery box. I probably have bought more cables to get the right cabling than I can take a stick at. Ceramonics mics. The mics are great.
John, it looks like the camera mount allows you to move it around, or obviously that seems to be key to a setup like that.
Yeah, the camera's on a mast with a regular tripod head, so it can be moved and pointed at anything, and that'll be the main camera coming in through the ATEM. And then I can take in the Mid-Atlantic feed through the ATEM into the Zoom, and I can take in a separate laptop feed for showing movies and slides without having to do screen share. It's just a button on the ATEM.
And how stable is the image when you're rolling? Like when you're
surprisingly. But when I was rolling, what I would do is show a slide. The slide I've got behind me, I have slides for each day of the Mid-Atlantic. So when we're rolling, we'll just show a slide, without the man on the screen, just the slide, and that's very stable. But the big camera on top, the Vixia on the mast, is also very stable. It can do fine while rolling. That's partly the wheels. That's what the cart gave me was 8-inch wheels. They rolled a whole lot better than 4-inch Shopcasters.
So do you have a module in the output from the laptop that converts it to HDMI for the ATEM?
The laptop, let me see. The laptop goes right into the Zoom. It goes in on Wi-Fi. It takes out of the ATEM. It doesn't go into the outside. The external laptop just goes straight in HDMI to HDMI.
But you must have something on the laptop converting its signal to HDMI because laptops don't speak HDMI.
Yes, they do.
MacBooks
do. They do.
My MacBook does perfectly. It puts out very good HDMI. It doesn't need any convert. In other words, the laptop HDMI out goes into a 3-channel powered HDMI splitter, and that gives me 3 feeds. One goes for monitors and external TVs. I've tried it with several units. It works very well. The amazing thing about it is the setup is stable, which really surprised me.
Now you're using an USB-C out of the laptop? To
the monitor. No, I'm using all HDMI out of the laptop. HDMI to a splitter, and then all the external monitors are HDMI fed, not C fed. They could be C, but they're not, because that gives me better control straight out of the splitter.
So, John, the bidding should start about $3,000 without the laptop, right?
It's all gear I wanted anyway. I didn't spend any money I wasn't going to spend. When I travel, I like to travel with a laptop and a second monitor because I do video editing, and it's really hard to do that on one screen. So I didn't actually buy anything. I wasn't going to. It just happens that it all worked out. Randy wants to show us a camera that relates to this. He's got an OBSpot. We got a couple of minutes left. I've deliberately not gone the OBSpot route for ideological reasons I could explain. But anyway, I'm going to let Randy show his OBSpot in the last couple of minutes, unless we got to. You want it, Randy? Go for it.
Yep. I got a camera, and I only got it like 2 days ago. I'm going to switch over to that camera now. It's called OBS Bot. One of the things it has that's nice is tracking and gesture control, which means I can control the camera by just waving my arms looking like an idiot. But it will actually track me. If I walk around or if I do something, it will actually track me. Now this is a webcam. It connects to USB-C, and It's a very tiny camera. I mean, very tiny. And if you wanted to, I'm going to do this and I hope it works. You can hang it upside down and it will, I don't know if it will track me now or not. I guess so it will hang upside down, and you could put it above you pointing down. There's an app that runs on Windows, iPhones, Androids, and Macs, I think, as well, to actually control the camera. It does have gesture controls. I'm going to put it back down here. Sorry about that, everyone. It does have gesture controls for focus, zoom, and tracking. So you can set it up to do all those things just by gesturing at the phone. And I'm going to switch back to my webcam. Yeah, this is the camera. This is actually what it looks like.
Yeah,
and you can use my hand for a reference.
We had a good demo of that in the slideshow a few weeks ago with what's his name? Jack Vesery was using one for our slideshow.
The thing I wanted to use it for was to hang it above a demonstrator pointing down to move the camera around. Now the little piece that goes from USB-C to HDMI, these are about $230, which is not bad for a PTZ camera. And it does zoom up to 4 times. It is a digital zoom, but it zooms very smoothly. It does not look like a digital zoom. And even when zoomed 4 times, it does look just like it looks as good as when it's not.
We're right up on the hour, Randy, and we got another hand up from a new guy here who showed up, David Senecal, who's just joined our club from Ontario. And since he has his hand up, I'm going to give him the last minute here. David, what do you want to say?
Oh, I just wanted to introduce myself and say I'm happy to join your club. I joined on the recommendation of Mike Brazel. We both belong to the same guild here in Hamilton, and I'm pleased, and I hope I can contribute in the future and participate in show and tell. I do mostly
bring it into the camera,
sort of like mostly embellished type of work.
Bring it in where your face is so we can see it. That's turned, carved, and painted, yeah?
Yeah, most of my work is embellished.
Well, look, David, rather than having a little look right here, would you give us a show next week or the week after so we can really see more of your work?
I can. Yeah. So you want me to what?
Bring in some slides or bring in more work so we can have a good look and ask you some questions because we're at the end of our time for today.
Yeah. Okay, that'd be fine. Yep.
Okay, I'd like that. Thank you for joining us. Anybody else here since we're right over the hour?
Yeah, John, I'd just like to point out Mid-Atlantic coming up this next week. I see some of the volunteers online here. I'm going to be sending out the schedule for picking up the equipment, set up and tear down and all of that. And if anybody's interested in volunteering to help with that, get in touch with me.
I'm going to be with you on that, taking pictures and making movies. So I'm going to meet you at the truck place first thing in the morning.
When's the equipment pickup, John? Ron?
Thursday morning.
Picking up Thursday morning, and then setup will be Friday probably. I don't know if we can actually set up in the rooms on Thursday.
I believe we
may just bring the stuff in and store it.
Yeah.
If we can, we'll set it up Thursday, but I got to find that out.
We're going over Wednesday night to prep the lathe and get the TV taken apart so it can all go down on the forklift to get on the truck Thursday morning.
Yeah, they need to get the lathe, the sharpener, and the video, I guess it is.
The TV and the cabinet. Yep. Barry's making a box for the TV. We're
Ron,
go ahead.
Sorry, my lathe is going to be at the garage door on Thursday morning. You'll have to ask my wife to open the door for you because I'll be in Messina.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else? thank you all for your diligent attention. Very enjoyable coffee hour. We'll see you all next week when we'll be setting up the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks,
Take
John.
care.
Thank you,
See you
John.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Wood shop. Thank God for wood.